Hi, another big reason to start daily breath work, another big reason to start regular breath work, to have a healthy breathing habit. So in this video, I'm going to explain what dysfunctional breathing habits are, what a functional breathing habit looks like, what do I mean by dysfunctional and functional, why don't I say wrong breathing habits and right breathing habits, because there is specifically something going on over there. Many people talk about this is the right way to breathe, this is the right way to breathe, this is the wrong way to breathe, which is not true at all, which is not a scientific claim at all. And I'm going to explain, as someone who's been doing research on our breathing habits for over 25 years, who've been studying, researching, especially the behavioral breathing habits, like how do we learn breathing behaviors and what happens if you have a breathing behavior and which symptoms we experience and how can we have a more functional breathing habit. I'm going to explain all of these in this video. So what does a healthy breathing habit mean and what does a healthy breathing look like? Before I start that, I'm going to talk about why a healthy breathing habit is very important. So why should we, first of all, have a healthy breathing habit? Why should I bother working on my breathing? Why is having a healthy breathing habit very important? Because life equals to breath. We take our first breath, we get born, we breathe in, we breathe out, do it again and again and again. We give out our last breath and we die. So what we call life is the inhales and exhales in between. That is life. Your whole life is about your first inhale and your last exhale. And other than everything you're doing gradually, everything you're doing during the day, like you eat sometimes, you drink sometimes, you sleep sometimes, the only one thing, if you are alive in this world, the only one thing you will be constantly doing is breathing in and breathing out. So feel that. Feel the importance of that. Breath is life. And the quality of our breathing determines the quality of our lives. The better you breathe, the better you will live, because our whole bodies depend on our breath. You can live without food and water for weeks, but without breath, you can't live for more than a couple of minutes. So our breath is life. How we breathe matters. How we breathe affects everything. Affects our physiology, affects our chemistry, affects our thoughts, affects our emotions. No wonder why so many people have panic attack and anxiety. No wonder why so many people have migraines and headaches and chronic pain. No wonder so many children have ADD, ADHD, attention deficit problems, and all kinds of concentration and focus issues when they don't have any oxygen in the brain. Of course, no wonder. This body, our whole cells and tissues and organs function well and live with breath. So whenever we have problems in our breathing, whenever we have problems with our breath, it's obvious that we won't have enough oxygen in our brain, in our organs, and our organs, our cells, our tissues regenerate. They renew themselves with breath. They can't renew themselves. They lose their health. They lose their power. Immune system shuts off when we breathe dysfunctional. If we have unhealthy breathing habits, if we have dysfunctional breathing habits, no matter how well we eat, no matter how much we exercise, you've heard of people who, because of, I don't know if you've heard of the people who, because of breathing habits, had symptoms and died, but I have heard of many people with breathing symptoms, with dysfunctional breathing symptoms. We experienced that in the pandemic. People with healthy breathing habits, people with healthy respiratory systems, they had strong immune systems and they survived. People with immune systems that were weak and people with problems in their breathing, problems with their respiratory system, died. Hundreds of thousands of people died. And as a breathing scientist, as someone who's dedicated to introducing this amazing tool to humanity, to hundreds of millions of people, I think that was the sign we've been waiting for. I think that was kind of like breath. It is the most important tool. I gave you breath. I can hear the universe saying, I gave you the breath, idiots. I gave you this breath for you to stay healthy, for you to stay well, for your cells and tissues to regenerate, and you're not using it. You're not becoming aware of it. You're not doing anything about it. It's just such a stupidity for, of course, someone who's an expert and who've been teaching breathwork and leading people into healthy breathing habits. It's just stupidity for any of us to become aware of our breathing if we want to stay healthy and well. People are doing all kinds of silly stuff to stay healthy and well. Eating organic, it's not silly, but eating organic, exercising the whole day, eating alkaline foods and special diets and this and that. But if you have problems with your breathing, your cells won't regenerate and your skin won't shine like my skin does. And I'm almost 50 now. Think of it. And when I go back 20 years, when I think of it, in my 20s, I did not have the skin I have today. And my breathing habit is healthy. So my body is healthy. I'm much more healthier than I was in my 20s because I have a healthy breathing. So in this video, like I said, I'm going to explain what healthy breathing is. So healthy breathing equals to functional breathing, which means not having breathing behaviors. What's a breathing behavior? So when you look at breathing, it's a behavior. And breathing and respiration are two different things. Respiration, it's automatic. It's a brainstem reflex. It happens automatically. You don't have to think of it, like your digestive system. Like you don't have to think of it, what's happening in your digestive system. You don't have to think of what's happening in your respiration because it happens automatically. And you can't manipulate, you cannot control, you cannot change your respiration. You cannot say like, okay, right now I'm changing the oxygen level in my lungs, I'm changing the oxygen level in my blood. That's not happening. But we can change how we breathe. And our breath affects our respiration. So the respiration happens by itself, but it is manipulated and it is controlled by how we are breathing. So you can literally change the oxygen levels in your blood and in your lungs and in the arteries and in your body just by changing your breath. It's not going to happen instantly, but it's going to happen at that very moment. So it's not happening at the same time, but it's happening in the same few seconds, let me say. The moment you change your breathing, we see a change in your carbon dioxide levels, in your oxygen levels, and on top of that, in your overall body fluid pH levels, because respiration regulates our body fluid pH. So no matter what you're doing with your eating, no matter how alkaline you're eating or how healthy you're eating, if you have problems with your breathing, it's going to affect your body fluid pH and you won't be able to keep your pH balanced. That's that. So functional breathing means not having any breathing behaviors. What does breathing behaviors mean? So a breathing behavior is a learned behavior. Breathing is behavioral, like all behaviors people have. It is learned, and it is mostly learned unconsciously, like all behavioral habits, like the way you talk, the way you sit, the way you get up, walk, eat, talk. Like, for example, the way I'm moving my hands while I'm speaking. This is not automatic like the digestive system, but this is physiological, like moving my hands. Of course, right now I'm thinking about moving my hands, but usually when I'm speaking, I don't stop and think about moving my hands. It happens automatically. For example, when I'm explaining you something, when I'm on stage, when I'm teaching, this happens automatically. I don't think of it. It is a learned behavioral habit. Our physiology acts separate from us. Our physiology learns. It is kind of like another entity. Think of your physiology as another entity. It's another entity. It learns by itself. It gets programmed. It can be programmed. It can be reprogrammed. It can relearn. It can unlearn. You can change behavioral habits. But the most important thing is your physiology learns. And as you learn body postures, as people have tics, as people have wrong and dysfunctional postural habits, we also learn breathing behaviors, behavioral habits on our breathing. Some of those habits are okay. They're good. They don't change anything in our respiratory physiology, chemistry. Some of them are functional, or even if they do, they support the respiratory system. This is very important. What I call, or what we call as breathing scientists, as functional breathing, is a breathing habit that can be learned. So there are two ways of breathing functional. The first way of breathing functional is not having any breathing habits at all, which means letting the respiration do its job, letting the physiology do its job. That's the ultimate level we want you to get to. And that can happen by practicing different breathing modalities and by working on your breath and becoming more aware on your breath and using breath work and using breathing techniques and using different breath work tools each and every day. The second is having a few breathing habits and breathing behaviors, but those behaviors supporting the respiratory system. So if you have a breathing behavior and that breathing behavior is supporting the respiratory system, is supporting the respiratory chemistry, and is supporting the respiratory physiology, that's awesome. If your learned breathing behavior, and most of us have learned breathing behaviors that do not support the respiratory system, that do not support the respiratory physiology and chemistry, which leads to symptoms called hypocapnia or hypercapnia, which means it changes. So if you have a breathing habit, a learned breathing habit, you're probably asking now, why do we learn breathing habits? What's the reason behind that? I'm going to explain it, but just to answer your questions, because of some emotional reasons or some reasons, we want to keep ourselves in some states, let me say. It's like over the years, with all the research I've been doing and study I've been doing, I have recognized and I have found out that people learn breathing behaviors for emotional reasons. It's like you want to manipulate your emotions, and I'm going to explain it in a few minutes. So if you have breathing behaviors that are not supporting the respiration, that are not aligned with respiratory chemistry, which means that are not aligned with how the respiration should be. So each moment, for us to have a healthy body, for us to have a healthy chemistry, for us to be healthy physically and chemically in our body, in our system, there has to be a balance. For example, you probably heard of the 7.4, the magical pH number. So that's the ultimate healthy pH for people, because when your body is, I'm talking about chemistry here, the body fluid chemistry or the chemistry of our body. So when the chemistry of our body, when our pH levels are 7.4, it is a magical number, and you feel with that number. So this part is very important. I'm talking chemical, but I'm also talking chemistry, but I'm also talking psychology. I'm also talking about psychology, because these are the same thing. Listen to me very carefully. Whenever, and you can research this, it's like there are thousands of scientific research on this specific topic I'm talking about. Most of us are during the day experiencing psychological symptoms like panic attack, anxiety, depression. We feel stressed, that fight or flight reflex people are talking about. These symptoms, most of them are actually chemical symptoms. Listen to me carefully. So whenever we have research on this, please, whenever we have 7.4 pH, so whenever our pH levels are 7.4, that's the magical number, we are centered. So that centered state you want to have, like the centered state you want to have, that's the reason why you're doing yoga and meditation and this and that, right? So that centered state you want to get to is also a physiological, chemical state. And people just don't recognize this. People go out there and do all kinds of mindfulness practices and psychological practices, listen to that, listen to this, but they don't understand that centeredness is not just a feeling, it is something physical, it is something chemical. And the chemistry of being centeredness, listen to this, the chemistry of centeredness equals to 7.4 pH. So the chemistry 7.4, the pH level 7.4 is the magical level for all of us, because whenever our whole body is at that pH, we feel centered, we are balanced, our mind thinks balanced thoughts, our perceptions, there are no perceptions, we are in the moment, we are fully connected with the moment, we are fully centered, we are experiencing our higher levels of consciousness. We are tapping into a very balanced mindset without perceptions, and we see the truth. We do not have emotional ups and downs. We do not experience emotional triggers. We do not experience emotions like fear, panic, anxiety. We do not experience emotions like hyperactivity and all that, joy as well. We stay balanced and we stay calm, and that's the ultimate state for humankind, which is 7.4 pH. That's that simple, and yet we can't stay there. Why? Because our body fluid chemistry is managed, regulated by our respiration, and we have millions of people have dysfunctional breathing habits. Breathing habits you don't even know about. Like I said in the beginning, your physiology learns breathing behaviors. So your physiology learned breathing behaviors many years ago, unconsciously probably, and you're not even recognizing it. Like I said, like you move your hands, you do something with your breath, you don't recognize it. Whenever you change your breath, the moment you change your breath, it affects the respiration. It affects the carbon dioxide levels and the oxygen levels in the respiratory system, and immediately it affects your body fluid pH, and you don't stay in 7.4. What happens is, whenever you are breathing dysfunctional, if you have dysfunctional breathing habits, you're not aware of it. Awareness is the key, and I talked about awareness in my last video. Breath awareness is the key. If I'm not practicing breathing every day, if I'm not practicing different ways of breathing every day, if I have no awareness in my breathing, in how I breathe, and I have dysfunctional breathing habits getting triggered during the day, what happens is every time you breathe dysfunctional, every time you change your breathing without even recognizing it, your body fluid pH changes, your respiratory chemistry changes due to the oxygen level, carbon dioxide level, which is called scientifically hypocapnia and hypercapnia. Hypocapnia is lowering the carbon dioxide levels. Hypercapnia is high carbon dioxide levels. And whenever you have oxygen levels low, oxygen levels high, carbon dioxide levels low, carbon dioxide levels high, that affects our body chemistry. Our respiratory chemistry affects our body chemistry, and we can't stay in 7.4 pH. We either go too much alkaline, which is called respiratory alkalosis, hypocapnia, which affects the body fluid pH. When you go into respiratory alkalosis, people think respiration and the overall body fluid pH is different. No, respiration affects the overall body fluid pH. It's like if you go into hypocapnia, if you're experiencing respiratory alkalosis, you are alkaline, too alkaline. Your whole body pH is way beyond above 7.4. What happens? The symptoms, the scientifically well-known symptoms of hypercapnia, the scientifically well-known symptoms of too alkaline pH in the body, panic and anxiety and your heart beating too fast and flight or fight reflex and stressed and hyperactive and can't calm down. And in the end, you won't have enough oxygen in the brain, attention deficit problems, ADD, ADHD. These are all well-known symptoms of hypocapnia. Just check it, Google it, read a respiratory science book. 200 well-known symptoms, over 200 well-known symptoms of hypocapnia. You might be experiencing all those symptoms. Headaches and migraine and body pain and neck pain, chronic pain, back pain, panic and anxiety and fear and all those feelings. That's alkaline. That's being too alkaline. That's respiratory alkalosis. That's having a breathing problem. And what you can also be experiencing is high carbon dioxide levels, acidic. You can also be, due to your breathing habit, Whenever your breath changes, your respiratory chemistry changes. If your respiratory chemistry goes too much, if you have high carbon dioxide levels, if you're a shallow breather and you're doing sports and your body is releasing too much lactic acid and this and that, not to go into detail, you're going to be experiencing respiratory acidosis. And whenever you experience respiratory acidosis, you know what? Your whole body goes acidic. No matter what you eat, no matter what you're doing, your whole body goes acidic below 7.4. What happens? You feel out of energy, you feel depressed, you think there is no meaning of life, I want to die, why am I living, why am I even here? It changes your thoughts and your perceptions and how you feel. Our breath, that's why, affects how we feel, how we think, because it affects our chemistry. And most of the psychological problems people are experiencing, which are called psychological, are actually chemical problems. I have seen that they are chemical problems. How do I know that? Because I have worked with enough people, tens of thousands of people, joined my courses over the 20 years. And I have seen tens of thousands of people heal, ease, my mom included, by the way, migraine, panic attack, headaches, body pain, chronic pain, ADD, ADHD, attention deficit problems, and many more breathing-related issues like scientifically well-known symptoms of either hypocapnia or hypercapnia in a matter of few months, totally healed, fully. And that's going to happen only with regular breath work. So this is the third reason why we should all be practicing breath work every day for 5 to 10 minutes. That is why we created a hub, a breath hub, so that you can practice all kinds of breathing modalities. So I'm going to come to the topic. So why shouldn't we practice one breathing? So what's the best way to breathe? I see many teachers, of course, who doesn't have scientific backgrounds. It is not to judge, but of course, if you don't know, you don't know. Who haven't done the research I have speaking about the right way to breathe. I hear teachers saying, diaphragmatic breathing is the best way to breathe. It is the right way to breathe. And I have seen people who are breathing in the diaphragm the whole day, going into hypocapnia, experiencing all kinds of cardiology problems and irregular heartbeat and fast heartbeat and hypertension, attention deficit problems, anxiety, panic attack, you know, the well-known symptoms of hypocapnia, just due to breathing in the diaphragm. Diaphragmatic breathing is not the right way to breathe. Simple as that. If you're breathing in the diaphragm the whole day, you're going to go into hypercapnia because that's going to lead you into overbreathing. And your body doesn't need diaphragmatic breathing the whole day. For example, if you're a diaphragmatic breather and you breathe in the diaphragm the whole day and you can't just stop and relax the breath and move it to your chest and shallow it down, you won't be able to sleep. No wonder why we have many sleeping problems and people are trying to heal their sleeping problems. No wonder why many people are saying, I can't sleep and I have insomnia. Of course you have insomnia because you're breathing in the diaphragm too much. You're just taking in life too much. You're going into hypocapnia. You have this hyper energy and can't calm down. While going to sleep, while we relax, during meditation, while we calm down, our breath gets shallow. So for us to fall deeply into sleep easily, for you to easily sleep like I do, or many people who practice regular breath work, you will need to calm down the breath. And, for example, for you to perform better, you need diaphragmatic breathing. So there are times during the day when we need diaphragmatic breathing. For example, when you look at the respiratory reflexes, when you're running, the respiratory reflexes kick in and you start breathing in the diaphragm and you start breathing too deep. You know, while doing professional sports, running, playing tennis, whatever, you realize that respiratory reflexes kick in and you breathe too deep, right? Why? You want to know why? Because your body is producing too much lactic acid. And usually in the body, to compensate that lactic acid, there is something called bicarbonates. This is also chemistry. So bicarbonates in the kidneys, we have, bicarbonates are in the kidneys, compensate the acidity in the body so that our body stays balance. Or else we would die of lactic acid if you don't have enough bicarbonates. And if you wouldn't be able to breathe deep, and I'm coming there, if you had a shallow breathing habit, and while running, you were not able to breathe in the diaphragm and use the diaphragm and fully breathe deep, and you were doing performance sports, you know what happened with that tennis girl in Wimbledon? She was out of breath and she couldn't continue. That's the reason. Because if you're breathing shallow, and if you have a shallow breathing habit and you can't deepen it and use the diaphragm fully, like she needs to practice diaphragmatic breathing every day. I don't know if she's doing right now, but that's the need. If you can't do that, you won't be able to compensate the lactic acid, because bicarbonates, especially doing professional sports, when running too much or in a tennis match, your body will release a hell of a lactic acid, and the bicarbonates in the kidneys won't be enough. So what's going to happen is your body reflexes, your respiratory reflexes will kick in, and you're going to start breathing deep so that you go alkaline by decreasing the carbon dioxide levels, increasing the oxygen levels. That's what happens because you are doing a sport, because your body is releasing too much lactic acid. We don't go into respiratory alkalosis because we're already acidic. That alkaline compensates the acidity in the body, which is very healthy. But imagine you're not doing sports, you're not running, you're just sitting at the office, and I'm explaining you a dysfunctional breathing habit people learned, or you learned. Just because something happened in the office and you feel a bit stressed or you don't like it or whatever, and just because you want to calm down yourself, you start breathing deep. I see people like, breathe deep. Of course, learning to breathe deep is very important. That's why we have diaphragmatic breathing sessions on Breath Hub, or deep breathing sessions Breath Hub. They are not to teach you deep breathing is the best way to breathe. You'll go into respiratory alkalosis. They are to expand the breathing. Just think of breathwork as an exercise. Just think of Breath Hub, a platform you can use whenever you want, wherever you want, at the lowest cost possible, which includes hundreds of breathing techniques for you to exercise for a couple of minutes every day. Not to teach you this is the best way to breathe. Imagine you're sitting at the office and you feel stressed and you start taking deep breaths. And you're not running, you're not doing a sport, you're not playing tennis, and there is no acidity in the body. What's going to happen is you're going to go into too alkaline, hypocapnia, respiratory alkalosis. And this time, because of that alkaline, you're going to start feeling panic. And then you will probably have a panic attack or an anxiety. And that's why many people have panic attacks and anxiety. They have a breathing habit of breathing deep when the body doesn't need to. And the opposite is also true. So none of the none of the ways of breathing on the mechanic level, diaphragmatic breathing, chest breathing, deep breathing, shallow breathing, fast breathing, slow breathing, or whatever, are good for you. All of them are good for you. So think of breath work as yoga. During yoga, you stretch your body. During breath work, if you do what we suggest, like practicing one breathwork technique every day and doing it differently, and of course, breathing analysis is very, very important. Of course, breathing analysis is very important, and I'm going to be talking about that. What is breathing analysis? How do we analyze our breathing in the next video? Analyze your breathing. There is a unique algorithm. I have been working on this for decades, for over 2 decades now, the breathing analysis algorithm. You can't find it anywhere else, but only on Breath Hub. We created a whole algorithm for you, for us, to see your breathing behavior. We ask you some simple questions, and by those simple questions, we understand, we know how we are breathing. If we didn't have all the researches, we wouldn't know. For example, if you're experiencing brain fog during the day, do you know how you're breathing? If you're experiencing brain fog, what's going on the chemical level, mechanic level? We know, because we've been doing tens of thousands of researches over the years with capnographs, and we know how you're breathing, and we know why you're experiencing that. We know exactly why you're experiencing panic attack, anxiety, what you're doing with your breathing. So if you want to change your breathing habit and if you want to breathe more functional, first of all, download Breath Hub and get the breath analysis. And with that breathing analysis, just answer simple questions. And we're going to we have a map of your breathing with those questions. Because we have been doing a lot of research on that. And afterwards, we're going to lead you into a customized journey, maybe 30 days, maybe 60 days, 90 days, I don't know how long. And then at the end of that journey, we'll still check your breathing. You're going to have another breathing analysis. And make sure you send us emails and send us messages. There's a whole group of breath workers, more than 300 breath coaches, breath workers involved in this project, ready to answer your emails, ready to answer your messages. If you need personal support, if you need one-to-one sessions, if you need answers to your questions, make sure you send us emails and we can organize a 10-minute, 15-minute quick session with one of our breath workers and breath coaches, one of our experts in our team, so that we can lead you into a more functional way of breathing. So imagine breath work as stretching your breath, and you will need that stretch so that you can have a functional breathing habit. And the moment you have a more functional, healthy breathing habit, you will have more oxygen in the brain, you will have more oxygen in the body, in your cells, in your tissues, everything will regenerate. Plus, you're going to be centered. So that centeredness, that balanced state I have been searching for many years ago, I found it with regular breath work. So with regular breath work, with a healthy breathing habit, you'll eventually come to a place where your body fluid pH will be more stable. If it's more stable, I am more stable. So unlike many people staying stable and balanced and centered is possible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you don't have any dysfunctional breathing habits getting triggered, if your chemistry doesn't change, you don't go there. It's like you don't go into that energy, you know what I mean? Because those energies are chemical. It's like you experience anxiety, panic attack, fear, because your chemistry changes. Just imagine, what if your chemistry didn't change and it stayed at the ultimate level, your whole physiology? You would boost. It's like your immunity would boost and your skin would be shining and you would be much more healthier and well, and emotionally and mentally and spiritually you would be centered and balanced. I'm looking forward to your messages. Make sure you send us messages and your questions, and make sure you click on like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. In our next video, I'm going to explain the 4th reason why we should all be practicing breathwork, and I'm going to explain you the system called, the unique algorithm we have called breath analysis.